State of the franchise is back, which means it's perfect time to talk about what the San Francisco 49ers are going to do at 11. Do they stand pat, pick, trade back, or trade up? We'll talk about all the potential options that they have on top of some of the recent updates that have come out about Brandon Aiyuk, Brock Purdy's negotiation, and all those things. We're going to get into that now on State of the Franchise. But first, drop your spicy sourdoughs in the chat. Smash that like button on both videos on both channels. And let's get into it right now. That's Jason Aponte. I'm Brad Graham. We're going to get into it all right now. Hey man, we still got one of the hardest intros in the game. I'm just saying, shout out John H, man. Whoo, that intro goes fire still. How you doing, man?
I'm good. We should keep the song. We just got to change the players in it. And that's a similar thing that we've got going on with Sprint Right Options. Like Sprint Right Options intro is a bop. And we have Robbie Gold and Trey Lance. And I'm just like, we got to get some of these guys out of here, man. My God. You know, Robbie Gold is in it, for God's sakes.
Hey, that's a throwback. I'm sure a lot of 49er fans would like Robbie Gold right now coming through those doors, but that's a conversation for a different day, Jason. We got other things to talk about. We got draft. We got smoke season in full effect. And we'll start with smoke season first, and we'll get into kind of our thoughts on the 49ers' potential to trade up, stand pat, or even trade back. I don't even remember what order I just said, but let's get into it anyways. Just before we hopped on here, I want to call it an update. It's just kind of felt like this is where we're at kind of report from Jordan Schultz of Fox Sports. Let's start with the Brandon Aiyuk situation. That is a hot topic button, just to catch everyone up to speed if they've been living under a rock for whatever reason. It happens. We get it. Brandon Aiyuk is guaranteed 2026 salary and 2025 salary on April 1st. I believe it totals over or in the range of $50 million. So the 49ers are looking at options to potentially get out of this contract. And Jordan Schultz, to me, the newsworthy thing that came out of that was confirming that the 49ers have engaged in trade conversations with Brandon Aiyuk or with multiple teams for Brandon Aiyuk. So I guess I just want to kick it to you and get your thoughts on that. Do you think he'll get traded? Part of the report also was it seems unlikely that a trade will get done. What is your interpretation of what's going down, and what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I never thought that Brandon Aiyuk was going to get traded. That doesn't mean that the 49ers weren't looking to probably explore the options. And I think there's two different things there. Just because the 49ers are listening doesn't mean that something's imminent or going to happen. And we've talked about it. This has always been the turning point. And now that we have this date, it's really the turning point of this is the time where you'll figure out whether you're willing to gamble on Aiyuk's recovery while paying him. So any team that would be taking his contract on would be gambling on the idea of Brandon Aiyuk returning to form. And if the 49ers stand pat, they're gambling that Brandon Aiyuk would return to form. So right now, this is the moment. This right here is the turning point of you're either going to go with this whole risk reward thing and try to see it through with Brandon Aiyuk. And the reward is you get your natural separator back and your wide receiver room is far more potent. I think we can agree with that. Or the risk is Brandon Aiyuk never returns to the form that he was, and you have this contract. So this is the part that never really jived with me. Any team that would be trying to trade for Brandon Aiyuk had to be confident in his recovery, and how could you be? I mean, there's no real way to test it. So just because the 49ers were kind of looking at this and saying, this contract, you know, we had issues with the way Aiyuk negotiated it. We had issues with the way that we were about to trade him to Pittsburgh, and Kyle Shanahan stopped this. We actually want to mitigate this risk by moving him and not having to worry about his recovery, that could possibly be on the table, but it takes two to tango. And if the 49ers don't get back what they feel is necessary compensation, then Brandon Aiyuk wasn't going to go anywhere. It's the 26th. There's a few days left. April 1st is the day. And then, obviously draft day or whatever. But I want to throw another layer on this for you, Brad. If the 49ers did move Brandon Aiyuk before this April 1st date, doesn't it signal what their draft plans are and what people could possibly do to jump in front of them and take anybody that they would be targeting? Because the only real way to protect yourself from this is to trade him on draft day, but you don't have that option because April 1st is the option day. So you would be showing your hand right now by trading Brandon Aiyuk and signaling to the world that you need a wide receiver. So that's the part that I never really understood about this. And it always made this April 1st date the more complicated matter rather than do the 49ers want him or does Brandon Aiyuk going to be traded? It just, none of this timeline and money-wise lines up, unfortunately.
I think what you just spoke about Brandon Aiyuk resonates with me about the entire roster construction this offseason, right? Because I look at the 49ers trends since Kyle and John have taken over, and when they're going into the draft, they have every hole filled. An example I've used is they traded for Zane Gonzalez for a 7th-round pick, knowing damn well they were going to take Jake Moody, right? But it was, we don't want to go into the draft with that hole there. We want it to have each spot filled. You look at the defensive line, you can say right now that they have 3 holes on their starting defensive line. And there's, outside of, I would say, maybe a potential trade, like if they work some deals for some players that are currently on the roster, there's not a lot left in regards to signing. I don't even want to say impact. I'm just saying rotational guys. They're almost below the rotational players that are left. It's kind of fringe roster guys are the only guys that are out there on the open market. So it's hard to see how they're going to fill that hole heading into the draft. And you just mentioned if they trade Brandon Aiyuk, well, now it seems like they have a hole at wide receiver. That becomes a potential, maybe even target at 11 if they don't feel like, well, if we want to get someone like a McMillan or maybe a Golden or whatever, it creates a whole nother, I think, conversation. So that signals to me, and I'm curious to know your thoughts on this. Are they more concerned with getting the costs balanced opposed to the roster balance? Is that your interpretation of this particular offseason?
For sure. How could it not be? I mean, considering all the offseason moves and everything that the 49ers have told you from John Lynch at the Combine to all the reports, that's exactly what they've been doing. And that's why I feel the 49ers are much more inclined to move Aiyuk and listen to offers. And when you factor in all the other things, the injury, the way that the negotiations went, which they're still not happy about, perhaps a little bit of buyer's remorse, all of these things line up. However, just because you want something doesn't mean that that's going to come to fruition. And what's funny to me is the 49ers could want to move Aiyuk all they want, but if they don't, it's a nice little problem to have because you still would have a pure separator at X, to make your wide receiver room more potent. And by the way, I still think the 49ers with one of their 11 picks is going to address wide receiver. Hello, Jalen Noel. Hello, Kyle Williams. We're going to talk about that in a little bit too. Y'all got to get up off that name already. It's over. Stop. Let that hurt go. My therapist already told me about
49er fans work, man.
Let that hurt go. My therapist already told me about letting that hurt go. Get it out of here. Forget what happened. This young man is better than that young man at that time. But
there, just to go a little further, there is no trauma like 49er fans trauma. I'm just saying it's a different breed, but go ahead.
It's fine. Again, this Kyle Williams ain't that Kyle Williams. We'll talk about it in a little bit though. But it just because there is this plan in motion, I don't think that they can literally make this happen. And selling Brandon Aiyuk for pennies on the dollar which would be, I don't think the relationship is so contentious that they would say, just give us a 6th or a 7th to get out of here and take him. I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true at all.
I don't think it's a relationship issue. I think
Right,
it's literally a cost issue.
right.
That's where it's at.
So for me, the timeline, the money doesn't line up. And also, when you think about the idea of you signaling to the NFL world, we're in the business of trying to look at a wide receiver at 11, it also puts you in a position where you're jockeying for position. And this whole episode is about what the 49ers options are at pick 11, trade up, trade down, stay put. You don't want to signal to everybody that your team needs are there. And then if you want to fit it in a context of free agents, well, who's available? Keenan Allen, Tyler Lockett, Deontay Johnson. It's not that they're bad players. It's just that's not an upgrade from where they are at this time in their careers right now. So it's the injury, it's finding a partner who's going to give you the compensation, and it's also making sure that you balance this roster in a way where you don't signal your draft needs going into draft night.
I think Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch have a big challenge in front of them. Now, it doesn't mean that they're going to necessarily fail at it. It just is going to be harder because, I think the 49ers are going to get creative. I think of listening to Ricky Pearsall and hearing how he discussed the 49ers' interest in him throughout the process. I think he had mentioned there was one brief meeting. I can't remember if it was at the Senior Bowl.
It was in Mobile. He said he spoke to them quickly. Like it
quickly.
wasn't even John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan who spoke to him.
Exactly. It was like the most informal of informal meetings, and didn't speak to him throughout the whole process, didn't go on a 30 visit, didn't do nothing, not even a Zoom, nada. And so in his mind, he didn't really have the 49ers on his radar. Sure enough, they're the team that was ready to pounce. I think the only other team that was on his radar was the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
They trade up with the Bills. They take Worthy. And lo and behold, the 49ers end up with Ricky Pearsall, which apparently is the guy they wanted the whole time. So I think that might be what the 49ers have to do. They might have to throw up some smoke screens. They might maybe have to show that maybe they are really interested in Alec Ayomanor from Stanford, when in reality, they want to go a different route. So I don't know. It's going to be fascinating to see because I think, like you mentioned, there are a lot of like perceived holes on this roster as it currently stands, and everyone knows it. Everyone can see it. Everyone can look at their roster and say, oh, they need defensive linemen. So wouldn't you say that a team who also needs a defensive lineman, who has their eyes on a target, that opens up the door for them to get jumped and get sniped in the end?
Exactly. And that's the crux of this argument. I wrote an article. I'm not going to say on what website because it enrages you so much, the name of it, which I have no bearing on the name. But that was me laying out all three possibilities. And that's the crux of this argument. And a little bit to your point about why are they at the pro day looking at this wide receiver and everything? Well, I think John Lynch and this organization have been criticized for not looking at certain positions. I'm not going to bring it up because, you guys are already pissed off at me, like right to start with Kyle Williams here. But I think you have to prepare yourself for every draft day scenario. And you don't want to get caught looking at a wide receiver or a player that you didn't even dig into at all, right? And you didn't do any work on. So I think while the draft visits and while the pro day visits and all of those things are good information, they're not indicators always. And the Ricky Pearsall thing is a good way of looking at it, right? They never spoke to Mike McGlinchey, and he was the pick, right? So I think there's examples of top 30 visits and formal visits and all of those things, and they end up getting drafted. And then there's absolutely examples of the 49ers not meeting with anybody and drafting them. So I think it's good information. It doesn't mean nothing, but it doesn't mean everything. And I think that's the way that I should put it.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it sounds like you're in the boat. Brandon Aiyuk is on the roster after April 1st.
Correct. And Rob Stats Guerrera, I'm not sure if you're watching, but get ready to wear that Yankee hat because I'm gonna win this bet.
What was the bet?
He's a big Seattle Mariners fan. I'm obviously, the Yankee fan. If Brandon Ayuk is traded, he was steadfast on the fact that he's like, I know they're getting rid of him. And I was like, okay, well, if Brandon Ayuk's traded, I'll wear a Seattle Mariners hat because I don't wear other teams' hats. I only have Yankees and 49ers hats. I don't wear anybody else's apparel. Sorry. Like I just can't. But I told him, I was like, if I win, you have to wear a Yankee hat on a stream. And if you win, then I have to wear a Mariners hat. And it's not the worst thing. Is at least he's not like a Red Sox fan. That would have been like putting something like horrible on my head.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's tripping off the Mariners too much. But I kind of agree with you. I definitely think the 49ers would do it. I just, where my hesitation comes from, who's going to be the team that bites? And again, if Brandon Aiyuk was healthy, this is probably a much different conversation. If Brandon Aiyuk had a middling year, kind of how it was just up and down all year, there's probably real conversations of him being traded. And it's
At the
more
deadline.
likely because he's healthy, right?
At the deadline, right?
At
like
the
that could
deadline.
be, yeah,
Exactly.
at the deadline, that could be a move. I mean, obviously, you paid out the roster bonus already, but at the deadline, you still could have a team that looks at Aiyuk and says, yeah, he's going up and down, but you know what? Another year off the injury, we can do a little something with that, and the 49ers can recoup more draft picks, which is what they seem to be after.
Yeah, so it'll be really interesting. My biggest thing is if and when Brandon Aiyuk is healthy, I hope that he can absolutely get back to actually contributing to this team because at a certain point, man, it's crazy. Like I'm not sure I've seen a player get hypothetically traded in the
More
last
times.
2 years more times than Brandon Aiyuk. It's
Yeah.
wild. Now, ultimately, he got the bag at the end of the day, and he won that for sure. And if he's here on April 1st, he's very excited because his bank account just got a lot bigger, right? Which it's going to get bigger either way. It's just who's footing that bill. But it would be great, I think, for BA to get healthy, come back, and have as good of a year as he can, depending on when he returns. Because obviously his knee got crunched up pretty good. And so the hope is that he can just play this year. And if he does, let's see what he does. Let's see if he comes back and contributes at a high level.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Is this isn't your run-of-the-mill ACL injury that modern medicine has made these athletes come back from immediately. It's ACL, MCL, PCL, and structural damage. So
was it a meniscus too?
Yes. So you're throwing all these other things that he has to recover from. If it was a clean ACL tear, I don't think anybody would be worried about his necessary recovery.
Right.
But it's all the CLs and his meniscus, all the CLs. So the one in the front, the one in the back, the one in the side, and that's the part that I think people are a little bit more hesitant to proclaim, hey, he's going to bounce right back. Again, Stephon Diggs is a lot older than Brandon Aiyuk, but it was an ACL tear. That's just a clean ACL tear, and you can get right back on it. If you guys remember the injury timeline, it took Brandon Aiyuk 6 weeks to be able to get surgery for the swelling to go down. That puts him on a completely different timeline than it does for someone who had a clean ACL tear. So that's another layer. That's another layer on top of it.
So it's going to be fascinating to see how this all plays out. Obviously, Juwan Jennings is going to take a much bigger role. Ricky Pearsall drafted in the first round for a reason, and they signed Demarcus Robinson in free agency. Hopefully, Jacob Cowing can take a step further. I think both of us believe he's got the talent to do so. We'll just see how that actually comes to fruition. I think we both know that rookie wide receivers typically are slower to come along in Kyle Shanahan's scheme. So hopefully he kind of breaks through and is able to do something. A guy that I like as well, the Isaiah Hodgins. I don't know if he'll do anything, but I like the potential that he has. So we'll see. Yeah, we'll see what happens with that. So April 1st will continue to be the deadline. I guarantee you we will hear little trickle updates about the situation until then. and we'll see how it plays out. I'll get to these super chats before we
yeah.
get to the next topic. Silence says, only one way for 2025 turnaround: draft 4D linemen in the top 5 rounds, 3 interior defensive tackles and a defense, DN starting center to replace Brendel. D-line picks need to be good enough to impact day one. I don't disagree. I think at minimum the 49ers have to draft 4 defensive linemen. 2, I think you're pretty much spot on. 3 interior defensive tackles, probably 2 edges, just to make sure. But wouldn't you say minimum 4 defensive linemen?
I mean, how is it not going to be? I mean, a 49ers dream, a 49ers fan's dream would be of the 11, 6 defensive linemen, 5 offensive linemen, right? Like we joke about that all the time. But I do want to throw this in there as well too. We saw today that Samuel was signed. We thought that he was going to come back. I think that he's going to have a larger expanded role. Same thing with Evan Anderson. But I do think that the keeping Yetur Gross Models and his flexibility is the 49ers kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone. So if you have an edge in the draft, or if you have a defensive tackle, being that he can play both, you feel a little bit better about his ability to fill in at either spot in a pinch. Now he has to stay healthy, all of those things as well too. And again, you don't have to agree with this. I'm just trying to give you insight into kind of what they're thinking. But yes, I think, and again, the dream pick at 11's got to be Mason Graham. But, and that's what, when we get to the portion about trade up, trade down, and stand pat, is what if Mason Graham is in striking distance? And then there's a player that's at 11 that you're not in love with. And then what do you do there, right? Like, so again, the 49ers have been missing a defensive tackle that stays on the field for 3 downs. For 3 downs. Not a pass rush specialist, not a run defense specialist like Javon Hargrave and Jordan Elliott and Malik Collins. Like, those guys are only there for situational football. They've been chasing the 3 down defensive tackle since DeForest Buckner left, unfortunately. So they've got to find a way to find that guy. And in the first round, if you go with it, then it's got to be a guy who hits the ground running. No developmental projects, no head cases, a guy that you're bringing into the building that you know is a part of your culture and that you know is going to contribute on day one. That's the hard part. So again, it's really, really going to be interesting to see how they move with this 11th pick and who they covet and what the 49ers draft board really looks like. Because regardless of who we love, we all know the San Francisco 49ers draft board is all over the place. And it's going to be the guys that they value.
Yeah, 100%. Sean says, I think the 30 visits is not a measure for top 50 prospects. You don't tip your hat to top tier impact guys. Food for thought. I also think their absence in free agency is a shift in philosophy. Sean does have a point that, if you're a top 50 guy, you know if you like him or not and what he's capable of. The top 30 visits, Cowing was a 30 visit last year. The 49ers ended up drafting him. So they definitely have a track record of drafting guys that they've met with and tracked throughout the process. Top 50 wise, I think of Deebo Samuel was a guy that they brought in and they drafted in the top 50. What'd you got?
I think Fannin is a top 30 visit as well too. And that just happened as well too. So that's a good thing. Everybody wants a second tight end. Fannin, obviously led the world in college in almost every statistical category. So that might be your tip. And I think Sean's right, is the 49ers, I'm not going to say they don't leak because that's nonsense. They absolutely are. There's leaks everywhere. Like, we need to just get rid of that whole saying because that's complete nonsense. But this is a good way for the 49ers to kind of keep their plans too close to the vest and keep their real intentions at the pick if they decide to stay there. And I think he's right about that. That's why I was saying about the visits. It's not everything, but it's not nothing. And I think when we start to piece things together, if there's 30 visits and the 49ers draft 3, does that mean that they're just drafting all, like, you can't draft all 30 visits, right? Like, so that's the question, right? Like, more than anything. And it's really hard to gauge who they have an eye on and who they are really going to target, because you can't draft all 30 players. You're just bringing them in for visits. So, yeah, like everyone will say, yeah, they've drafted top 30 guys. Sure, because how could they not? There's 27 that they can't. So that's kind of interesting when you think about that dynamic.
Well, and I also, too, I think that the 49ers are smart enough to understand that people are tracking all of this
Yeah.
movement. Shout out to Steph. So people can find this stuff. And if other teams were able to determine their draft strategy through who they meet, they're not doing a good enough job because they're not throwing enough smoke signals. And we know they do that. I think every team does that, and they should do that. You shouldn't want people to be able to identify your trends and what you want to accomplish, especially in a draft where people might be trying to jump you and do these other things. So speaking of jumping up, let's get back into that conversation about what the 49ers should do at 11. You mentioned the potential of a player sliding down. Do the 49ers, do you see a world that exists where they go, you know what? We have 11 draft picks right now. We see a player that we consider to be a blue chipper that we want to get, but we're only going to get this guy if we jump up beyond the Saints or jump over the Chicago Bears. Do you see that player? Do you see that as being something that they will do? Or do you see it more so as like they might need to trade back and actually get picks?
I see the strategy. And that's what I outlined in my article. It wasn't me jumping out and saying this is what they need to do. Because again, the board, what's their board? And the argument that I was making was, if there's a player that you wanted at 11 and you stand pat in the draft and someone else takes him, and then there are players available at pick 11 that you don't value that high, but you know another team will, and you allow them to move up and you move back a few spots and take someone who you do value at that spot while adding another draft pick, that could be the right way to go. Now, the real argument is, who cares where you draft them if you're drafting a good player? Like for me, I think the 49ers wouldn't take Jahad Campbell at 11, but Jahad Campbell is a smash, slam dunk, home run pick because he goes and he's right next to Fred Warner and he replaces Greenlaw for cheap. So it doesn't matter if you get him at 11 or 15. Now, if you can slide back a little bit and get him at 15 with another pick, you get more bites at the apple. But I did talk to Mike Tannenbaum today of ESPN about this strategy. And he said, I've seen the good and the bad as a general manager with this, where I've traded back. And he said, if you trade back, the amount of picks, the amount of spots that you trade back, you better have that amount of the same amount of players that you're in love with. Meaning, if you go back 10 spots, you better have 10 players that you really like because someone's
sniped.
Exactly. So he said, there's been times when I've traded back and I've gotten exactly who I wanted. And there's been times when I've traded back and someone has taken that player right in front of me. Now, he said the weird part about it is when they do take the player right in front of them, that player doesn't turn out to be what that franchise or his organization thought he would be, which alludes more to the draft, crapshoot.
Right.
But
being like, oh, they saved us from a mistake.
Right. But you run the risk when you trade back of someone trading ahead of you or taking the person that you think you're going to be able to get, because you're only going based off of team need. So staying pat is a risk. Trading back is a risk. The only one that's not a risk is trading up, because you're trading up for a player and you know exactly what player you're going to get. There's no risk of it, because when that team is on the clock, you trade with them and you move into that spot and no one can take that player in front of you. So the risk is really in staying pat, trading back, but never trading up. The only risk you run trading up is the draft capital that you would have to afford to get to that pick, depending on where it is.
I would add that the risk also would be just making sure you hit on the player, but that's an inherent risk in any draft selection that you make. So I'm not opposed to the 49ers potentially trading up. It would have to be for someone that obviously is a day one impact, clearly going to start right away, franchise cornerstone type player. They get that player, obviously you're not going to be too upset about that. I just look at this class and I think it's a good class. I really do. It's not a top heavy class, but I feel like you could find potentially, if we see the board going as it's going. Quick question as I continue this thought: is Shedeur Sanders going in the top 10 with the whole
Yes.
situation with the Giants?
Yes. So the way that I'm kind of thinking about it in when we were talking about how the Browns are gonna navigate the second round pick. Myles Garrett's not here to rebuild. Sure, it was money, but Myles Garrett is literally must have heard something from the Browns that says we're going to go in the direction of trying to compete. So let's operate under that assumption. But what does that mean? You draft Abdul Carter and put him across from Myles Garrett. You fortify that defense, and then you go get somebody like Kirk Cousins to start games. And he knows Kevin Stefanski's offense, and they're going to run the football a ton, and they're just going to ask him to manage the game, and they're going to hope their defense can carry them to a bunch of games. In that scenario, Shedeur Sanders is there at 3, and the Giants have signed Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson, and they have Tommy Cutlets, who they can just get rid of him. So I think it'll be up to the Giants to figure out, do we value Shedeur at this spot, or do we take someone like Travis Hunter and give Russ another weapon if he only wants to play wide receiver? So I do think in a little bit we're going to find out, but Adam Schefter just came out and said that he sees the Browns leaning to Abdul Carter, which lends to the theory that I have. Myles Garrett, while he got paid a ton of money, and sure, do not discount the fact that he came back for a bag, was probably assured, if I come back and sign here, I don't want to have Dorian Thompson-Robinson or Kenny Pickett starting here for me at quarterback, because Dorian Thompson-Robinson got traded for Kenny Pickett, but Kenny Pickett is not going to start here for me because I only have a few precious years left while I am going to be handsomely rewarded. So that's the reason that I think that Cleveland may be out on a quarterback, because they need a more established quarterback right now, and then they'll figure out whatever the hell's going on with Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, so it is going to be interesting to see where Shedeur goes. I hope he goes in the top 10, because that's going to be the best chance for one of the top players to squeeze out.
Dream scenario, Brad, is some team in the top 10 takes Ashton Janty and really like pushes other good players down the board, or even
McMillan,
like the ultra
Golden,
the ultra one, the one that like, this is like perfect world, a utopia, literally Adam and Eve type world that we'd be living in. is if Jackson Dart ends up in the top 10 somehow and people have pushed him all the way up. That is literally I don't think it'll ever happen. So like, before you guys are, that'll never happen. I know, but I'm just telling you, if we lived in a utopia, if we lived in a huge civilized
flying cars
universe, it would be 3 quarterbacks in the top 10 and push everybody down. But that is not going to happen.
Man, this would have been the perfect draft for the 49ers to have like a 4 to 5 elite quarterback class to just shove all the top talent down. So we'll see. I mean, we've seen crazier things happen. Jackson Dart doesn't have the same resume, but kind of from a vibe perspective reminds me of JJ McCarthy last year. Like, he could be a 8, 9, 10 potentially. We've already seen his stock kind of get pushed in the first.
His agent's working overtime right now.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, just take him in the top 10. Like, why not? Scouts loved him at the Senior Bowl. Oh, they're raving about him. Just take him in the top 10. Come on, Saints. Right. Saints need a quarterback. They only got one more year of Derek Carr, and then they're back into quarterback purgatory. And I don't know if Rattler's the answer there. So
he's not.
It'll be fascinating. It'll be fascinating to see what surprises go in the top. Like, we're talking quarterback, but like, we don't know if, Jahdae Barron is a top 10 lock. We don't know if Will Howard is a top 10 lock. We don't know if even now McMillan is a top 10 lock. He's sliding in this process. So it's going to be fascinating. It really, really is. I think for right now, the best strategy is going to be the draft day strategy of watching the board fall to you, and then you're on the clock and you make that decision. All right, we can jump back 7 picks. We can acquire 2 top 100 picks just for moving back, and we can still get a similar caliber player, right? Like I think that might be the move, because when you really get into that, I would say the strength of this draft, which is second and third round, there are potential guys who could be big time starters than they're being projected right now. They could definitely fill these holes that the San Francisco 49ers need to. Like there's so many avenues right now. So I'm definitely on team trade back, even if I think the guy that I want is there. I mean, I think the only way that currently for me, right, and this is just my preference, I'm gonna own up to this. I haven't watched Jihad Campbell yet, so I can't even give you an opinion there. So I know you've been super high on him, and
I've watched him actually.
I've kind of held my thoughts because I haven't watched him yet. So that's on my to-do list. So then I can give you a yay, nay. Jalen Walker, I'm open to the idea. He reminds me of Hassan Reddick.
It scares me. Oop, you're muted. Make sure you put yourself back on the right mic too.
Yeah, I think it scares people.
I think it scares people because he's Hassan Reddick. I remember Hassan Reddick coming out of Temple, and they were like, "Is he a middle linebacker? Is he an edge?
Right.
He's too small to play play middle linebacker." Cardinals take him. They put him at middle linebacker. Oh, this guy's a bust. We'll put him on the edge. Oh, this guy's pretty good on the edge. The measurables don't speak to him being a good edge player, but his play speaks to him being a good edge player. So that's the way that I look at him. He doesn't have the desirable measurables, right? He has the measurables of a smaller off-ball linebacker, but I'm opening up because I see. I was a Hassan Reddick. He was a draft crush of mine. Truther. So I'm seeing the similarities. Doesn't say I'm banging the table, but I'm saying I'm opening up that as a possibility. But I think for me, if it's not Campbell, Membo, Will Campbell, whose arms magically grew 3/8 of an inch,
and his wingspan got shorter.
Congratulations. Dude, I love that guy. I love his
answer.
Every single soundbite I've ever heard, I'm just like, dude, this guy's.
Did you hear his answer? Did you hear his answer? Yeah, he just said, listen, he was like
it's my spirit animal.
He was like, no, he's like, oh, so my arms aren't the length that you want, so I'm a bad football player. You clearly haven't watched me. I'm just like, yeah, get there, go off.
That's what I'm saying. It's like if you can show me on film, if you can show me on film a limitation with the arm length, sure. Like I'll take it in, I'll watch it, I'll look at it. If I'm watching this guy's film and I'm like, it looks good to me, 33, like if it changes your value of him, if his arm's worth 3/8 of an inch shorter from 33, then like, you know how I feel. We don't need to go down that road. So the point being is, though, if it's not Will Campbell, if it's not Membo, if it's not who else?
Mason
Graham. And again, maybe you could throw Will Howard into that mix, right?
Are you talking about the quarterback?
What am I? No. Who's the Michigan guy? Why do I keep saying Will Howard?
Kenneth Grant?
No, the cornerback.
Will Johnson. I'm like, wait a minute. Will Howard? Well, I know he had a great pro day today at OSU, but I was like, oh my God. I was like, is he a top 10 pick off a pro day?
I'm also outing myself by telling you that I haven't watched any Will Johnson, so I need to get on it. So
I have.
I haven't been watching the cornerbacks. I've mentioned that I have been watching nothing but trench players. I'm like, literally, I need to expand my horizon and start to think, and that's where I'm at. And that I'm at that point in the process where it's like, all right, I have to watch the other guys and I have to open my mind to that. So I still have some work to do, but at that point, I still think trade back makes the most sense. Get as many picks as you can, and because you kind of need as many shots at this as you can. You could be the greatest talent evaluator in human history, and you'll still miss on players for multiple reasons. But I think the more shots they have, the better opportunity that they bounce back really quickly.
More bites at the apple, I'm fine with that, right? You know, you continue to give yourself a chance, and obviously you mitigate the risk of the draft by adding more opportunities. Might I suggest, Brad Graham, if you are down, because I usually watch a lot of my tape at, you know, we do a joint watching, because I want to show you what I like about Jihad Campbell, and I want to show you what I like about Will Johnson. What I like about Jihad Campbell, you know, sideline to sideline speed,
it's motor. Actually a good stream idea.
Right, absolutely. Great in run fits. I think the negatives that I came across, because no player is perfect, and I think that's the way that you really should be evaluating everything. If your draft crush is perfect, then you're not really watching everything, right?
Exactly.
He struggles in play action. I think he bites the cheese a little bit, you know, too much, and he gets beat over his head. That's something that can be fixed, though. I think that's something that really he can be fixed with.
So he's a little over aggressive,
right? Again, you like the aggression, but control it, right? Like, like Greenlaw, right? Like you don't want that to start to be on film in the NFL, because they will start to hit you with play action. But he does have the speed to cover enough. I don't think he's like a super coverage linebacker. But I do just love his motor, the way he fits in the run game, sideline to sideline speed. Pair him next to Fred Warner, and now we're cooking. Like that's really what it is. And isn't Jihad injured, torn labrum in his shoulder? As long as it's not his legs, I don't care. Like if it's not his legs, then that means he's gonna be fast and he'll be all right. So torn labrum, we'll work it out and we'll figure that out. Now, Will Johnson,
not Will Howard,
phenom quarterback from OSU. I knew we had a good day today at the pro day, and I was like, damn, is Brad talking about Will Howard going into the top 10? I was like, I know he threw some nice passes today, but my goodness. Will Johnson, on the other hand, the injury concerns are there, right? He didn't run at his pro day because of a hamstring injury. Didn't work out at the combine because of an injury. Lost a lot of games in this season to an injury. If the draft was the year before, Will Johnson would be the number one cornerback by far. So your issues are that, but the play style is there because he's rangy, he's long, he can play coverage, off ball, press. He can play cover 3, right? Like if we're talking about Robert Saleh taking over this defense with cover 3, Will Johnson's an absolute fit. But the injuries is the reason that I think now I had him like high up, but man, I've got to be concerned about these injuries because they're to his legs. If it's to the legs, then I've got to be worried about that more than, again, Jihad Campbell has a torn labrum. Fine, you just fix that, you know, like that's fine. As long as his juice is there and he can still run and he can still be instinctual, he'll be fine. But I am scared off now by the injuries to Will Johnson. By the way, when I spoke to Mike Tannenbaum, he chose Will Johnson at 11 for the 49ers, and he said he dealt with Chris Kosurik and he worked with him a lot, and he believes that Chris Kosurik can get and manufacture pass rush with an 8-9 man rotation, almost saying that he can do it with just anybody, which I don't necessarily agree with. But Mike Tannenbaum is a Will Johnson hive guy, and so is Justin Reed from ESPN. And I spoke to both those guys, and those were their picks at 11. Just take it for what it's worth.
See, I'm taking in all the information, and I think we're having pretty good discussion about like all the potential options. I'm just reminiscing about, it's been a while since we've been able to really have these in-depth draft conversations about who the 49ers are taking in the first round, because it's either been at the very end of the first round or they haven't had a first round pick since the Trey Lance situation. Did you see the news about this? Is Trey Lance, big time squirrel, is Trey Lance going to play in the CFL?
Yeah, he's gonna need reps, and that's the only place that he's gonna get them. So, I mean, the only real path back to the NFL for Trey Lance is a Doug Flutie type arc, where you know he just works his way through the CFL, whatever it is, the UFL, but yeah, man, it doesn't sound like anybody wants to take a chance on Trey Lance. You know, I think at this point, and it is what it is, right? RIP to Trey Area, right?
Man, I just think back of like, yes, it was probably a good decision to be the highest possible he could be drafted to come out when he did. But it's just like, man, 1 year of college ball,
during COVID,
and then taking the year off. It was just like, man, that would have been the time to transfer.
He had to hit the portal.
Yeah, the second they found out that the FCS was going to cancel that whole, or was getting weird somehow. I mean, it's easy to say, right? Hindsight's 2020. But man, you just think about like, if he had more reps, what would he look like? You know, like
he needed reps. He needed reps in college.
Right.
The idea that NFL reps right off the bat were going to get him ready was a little bit of an oversight on the 49ers part, because it's faster. Right.
They needed to ride and die with those reps.
Right. And he needed to see the game at a slower pace in college for all of those things, right? Yeah. Not at the NFL level where everything moves at light speed and you're trying to figure things out on the fly. But yeah, major squirrel. Shout out to Trey Lance, man. Hopefully he gets back in the league somehow.
What were we talking about? Why did I don't even know.
We were talking about, it's been a long time since we've been able to go in and talk about different prospects and different positions, because the 49ers do have a bunch of needs, and it's pretty cool. And the 49ers have a high first round pick, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's keep that conversation going, because let's say they did trade back. Let's play that scenario out. Who would you like to see them target? Who would be some names that you could potentially see them adding in a trade back? Let's call it, anywhere between 17 and 25. Kind of.
I don't think my trade back target is Jihad Campbell, but he's going to be gone before 17-25, right? Like I don't see that there. If you're going 17 to 25, then you're starting to run the risk of these project guys, right? Like guys that either need more time, or and I think that's the hard part, right? Like Kenneth Grant is one. Obviously, Derek Harmon, who the 49ers were at the Oregon Pro Day, you can make it, you can make an assumption that they would like him as well, too. But I do think that Derek Harmon's buzz is getting a little too big now. And I don't know if he'll be there at 17, right? Especially for defensive line needy teams. So, again, you're running the risk, again, when you're moving back about, hey, we're going to target something for draft needs, but are they going to be there? And then you find yourself looking around and you're like, uh-oh, we got to take somebody because we can't trade back again. So that's the part. And then it's like Michael Williams and the kid from Ohio State that came up lame today. The other Williams, like
that was brutal.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, could he be having a second round? I don't know. Again, it's all dependent on the board. My dream scenario is the 49ers get a pick, move back from 11 to about 14, 15, and take Jihad Campbell, and then go back, with the pick that you have in the second round, whatever it is, or whatever it is that you picked up, and then address defensive line. Because I do think, while it's not as sure, clearly, because the further you get through the draft, clearly the percentage of a hit goes down, but there are guys that can be had in the second round that can be impact players. Then what the 49ers would have to do, and this is me just big braining this, Matthew Judon, Zadarius Smith, you have to bring in these guys for little to no money and have them as solid contributors while you bring these guys along as well, too, because you do want to have a semblance of pass rush. Like the idea that Mike Tannenbaum threw out there about Chris Kosera can get it out of anybody, get pass rush out of anybody, that kind of like came off a little bit, no disrespect to him because he's a nice guy, kind of casual, because he has done great work, but that wasn't the case last year. So I think, when you're looking at it this way, is if the 49ers decide to address defensive line later on, then you would have to bring in Zadarius Smith or Matthew Judon or somebody like that who is, a little bit past their prime and just a fill-in guy who you can kind of set your watch to, like almost like a Leonard Floyd.
I mean, I'm surprised they haven't made that move already. It feels like they need to, but hey, they got something cooking up. So we'll see what it is.
They have a plan.
I think the guy that really intrigues me the most and his value is James Pierce Jr.
Now, look, Mike Green, James Pierce, Mike Green, James Pierce, all these guys, we get it. Great football players. Character. Character. Listen, look. I'm going to say this in the nicest way possible. All 53 players on your roster can't be choir boys. Right?
Facts. Yeah.
They can't be bad people either. Like, they can't be bad people. And if you want to find out what's going on with Mike Green, I'm not going to talk about it on here because YouTube will pull it down if we say. But the 49ers have to strike this balance of, hey, this guy hasn't hurt people, right? He hasn't done anything terrible to people, but we can fix him because you can't do that, right? Like if it's a person who has done things to hurt people, then they're off your draft board. But the problem is, it can't be all choir boys. It can't be all Solomon Thomases because he was a really nice guy and you got into class with him and you realize that he's a really nice guy. All 53 guys on your roster cannot be choir boys. And it has to be a little bit of a balance with the person, provided that he's never hurt anybody, provided that he's not a menace. But you do need players a little bit with, let's just call it this, Brad, this is the way I'll put it, with a little bit more edge. With a little bit more of a mean streak. You do, right?
It's not a bad thing to have for a defensive lineman, as long as it's channeled onto the field.
Or just a football player, by the way, because you do have to be a little bit crazy to want to play football, like that part. I think we forget
kind of a maniac.
Yeah, you have to kind of be off your rocker to say, I just want to keep hitting people and just get my brain destroyed.
The best kind of maniacs are the ones who compartmentalize the maniac part. They know how to flip it on and turn it off, right?
Right, exactly. So that's the part that the 49ers really have in terms of we want good guys in our building. And that should be the way that a lot of teams go about it. Most teams do. But you've got to find a way to weigh the risk and reward. And if your culture is as strong as you believe it is and getting guys to buy in, then why wouldn't you be able to get somebody on board? And that's the part, for instance, here you go. Here's your perfect example. And obviously draft position is going to be different because it's the 7th round, but Juwan Jennings had character concerns coming out of Tennessee. Right?
Right. He had some issue with the coach, right?
Exactly. Right? What happened? You evaluated, you looked at Juwan Jennings, you said, we can fix him. And now look what you got. It's got to be a little bit more of that. I don't know who these guys are because we've never interviewed them. But there's your example right there. It's a guy like that. Hey, he had a run-in with a coach. You know what? He was young. We like his intensity. And now look, Juwan Jennings is a starting wide receiver for the 49ers. And he could have had 1,000 yards if, the ref didn't throw him out of the game because he's a nut job. But he's a good nut job. So that's the part that you've really got to figure out with the evaluation process.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's always a balance. It's a hard part when you're not in the weeds like these scouts and general managers are and coaches are, to be able to, get all that information, process it, and be able to identify. So it all I can say though is, and I keep saying it, there's so much good talent, especially at defensive line, D tackle, D end, that they could have 1st, 2nd, 3rd round, even 4th round. Dare I even say 5th round? There are different tiers of players that can be even better than what we anticipate what they are right now. So it's a good draft to have a lot of picks. We'll see.
Did we get a few super chats? My bad. Go ahead. Go to what were you going to say?
Did we?
I think we did.
Oh,
we got like 2 more
in Squirrel Land. Silent says, which D-line are gold helmet players for 49ers in 2025?
Silent, and I think that's how you say it. Previous gold helmet players for the 49ers: Mike McGlinchey, Ambry Thomas. I don't know if that matters as much as we think. Now, there's been some good gold helmet players. Like, don't get it twisted. But Alexa, turn off. Always when I'm cooking. I think it's less about the gold helmet players, and this goes back to kind of what I was saying about Boy Scouts and all that and everything. I don't know, man. You know, I'm not as worried about this, so I can't tell you who the defensive linemen are. I can guarantee you this: Mason Graham is a candidate for one of them. He's scrappy. He brings his lunch pail. He's a gym rat. Do you get where I'm going with this?
I do, 100%.
All right, cool. Yeah, I think it would be Mason Graham.
It sounds like Femio Ladejo could be a potential option. I think it was Tony Pauline who had reported that the 49ers are showing a lot of interest in him.
UCLA, right?
Yeah, it was on full display at the Senior Bowl. Linebacker coach. I don't know why I'm blanking on his name right now.
UCLA?
No, who's our linebacker coach that was at the Senior Bowl?
You're talking about KJ Wright.
KJ Wright. I call him CJ. Damn, man, I'm on one today. KJ Wright clearly has an inside track to that player. And they did a lot of conversating all throughout that week. So I do think that he could totally be an option for them. I mean, he fits the character mold. He fits the measurable mold. He's a bit of a raw prospect, going from off-ball linebacker to edge. So I think it sounded like he's seen. Oh, that's right. McKivitz was a gold helmet player as well.
I know you guys don't like to hear this, but the 49ers are getting solid return on their investment at right tackle. Hi-oh, everybody's going to get all upset now. Say one thing nice about Colton McKivitz, and everybody brings out the pitchforks. I dare you.
No, actually, if you're in the chat right now, we dare you to say one thing nice about Colton McKivitz. Do not bring up anything negative. Only one nice thing. I dare you. I dare you. Let's see if the chat hops in on this
and
one.
I think we have another super chat too. Yep.
Yeah. Well, the chat is determining if they want to give Colton McKivitz any love. Sean says Russ
he's
is
a chill guy. He's a good one.
Sanders, no pressure to play.
Well, Russ, that's what I'm saying. So like
he's on a 1-year deal.
Yeah, and the Browns take Abdul Carter, and why wouldn't the Giants take Shedeur Sanders? Because the other thing is, and I guess this is because I live so close to the stadium, the only way that Joe Shane and Brian Daboll put themselves in a position to not be fired is if they draft a rookie quarterback. Because if your plan is to go into this season with Russell Wilson as the starter with no backup, obviously Jameis Winston, but no rookie, right, then when you crash out and you go 6-11, you're fired. The only way that you can stick around one more year is they allow you to draft a quarterback and they see what you can do with it. So that's the only way you stay. Oh, let's see. McKivitz is a good run blocker. The last name McKivitz is cool. You guys are really, really I don't know if you're being facetious, but this is really nice.
Oh my God.
There you go.
You guys are the worst.
You know what's funny is,
dude, oh my God,
watching the public perception of Jake Booty and my take when this happened on draft night completely flipped to everybody just like, I hate him now. Where were y'all when I was fighting all of you off the night that it happened?
Bro, you have to be able to have some level of copium being a 49er fan. You got to cope with some of the decisions that they make. So I coped. I did my best. You know, I didn't like the pick, but I did my best to cope with he's going to be the franchise kicker.
No, you know what gets me bad? You know what got me bad? Was not necessarily that, but it was this team's ready to compete for a Super Bowl. All we need is a kicker.
See, that's where I think we pushed back all the way up to the draft of if all you need is a kicker, or if you need a kicker, why are you going with a rookie?
Well, and the other thing is
unknown.
The other thing is you're not looking at the bigger picture, because you draft a football player to fill a potential need down the road, perhaps a linebacker, perhaps a offensive tackle, perhaps any position. But now all of a sudden, everybody's like, "Oh, I hate Moody," and I was getting attacked because I wanted this team to actually draft football players, which is such a crazy idea, guys. I know sometimes I get big brain and I lose the plot, but draft football players for God's sakes. Kickers aren't football players. Sorry.
Hey, Jason, get ready for a 3rd round long snapper. So it's going to happen this year. We're gonna break the mold. We're gonna go for the trifecta. We're gonna draft a punter. We're gonna draft the kicker. We're gonna draft the long snapper. First team to do it. I don't know if any team has any team ever drafted a long snapper. Do you think that exists?
I will not waste my time looking down that rabbit hole.
Gosh, I want to see.
No, don't do that. We should be watching film of prospects. Like that is wasted, valuable time. I don't want to waste my brain. I don't want to waste my eyes looking into whether long snappers have been signed. Can't even touch them, for God's sake.
I'm not gonna lie. I was watching Tabor Pepper post some clips. I'd never seen anyone break down a long snapper before. I was kind of like that. It was kind of funny to see. But okay,
we got more. Enough with the specialists. I think we've got a bunch of we've got some super chats. Yeah, James dropping a dub.
Shout out James for the 20p. Shout out to everyone dropping a super chat today. As you can see, my mind's all over the place. If the 49ers end up trading down, which teams do you see the 49ers trading with, and who would they target? This is actually a great question because I was trying to figure out this exercise when Jason was talking about it earlier. He also says, does Kittle break the bank with his new contract? Ooh, that's also a good question. I'll take the Kittle question, then I'll kick you to answer the other question first. I don't necessarily. I do think Kittle is looking to be paid. Let's keep that abundantly clear. Do I think he's necessarily trying to set this new precedent, like he's going to reset the tight end market? I do not. I do think he wants to get paid most likely in the range of like a TJ Hawkinson, which is it's close, but I don't think he's necessarily looking to reset the market kind of like he did originally, right? He reset the market when he got signed to his contract extension. It was Travis Kelce who then got extended to immediately up his contract right after that. So I would say TJ Hawkinson feels like a target when you look at what he got paid.
Yeah, and I don't think he breaks the bank. And I think that any extension obviously gives the 49ers more cap space immediately. So I think that's another reason to get it done. I'm not really worried about Kittle and his contract. They'll get that done 100%. Now, the teams that could be targets for the 49ers to trade back, Miami, Indianapolis, the Bengals. You know, again, I get uncomfortable after pick 17. I get uncomfortable there. Like, that's when you start to really either draft a player that you don't have high on your board or just start drafting for a need. If you move back with any of these teams, it would be like, hey, we just got to make sure we get Tyler Warren, because you could see, you know, Indianapolis is fit right there for that. But I think those three would be your prime targets. And if the Cowboys want to get stupid and move up a pick, you know, for Ashton Janty, then sure. You know, why not? I mean, and if you think that the 49ers and Cowboys have never done it, they literally did it for Eric Reed and draft day. All rivals are off. The Eagles and Cowboys screwed the New York Giants out of Devonta Smith. Like, so we gotta kind of throw that one out as well too. So yeah, like if the Cowboys want to get dumb, then sure, why not move up?
Hey, they might. They need a running back.
Yeah. No, they don't. Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders. Case closed.
Oh.
Hey, that's
poor
a joke,
Javonte, man.
Poor Javonte. Yeah, I know. I got to take the L on that one. It's not looking
No,
good
it's not even an L. He messed up his knee and it was never the same.
Yeah, it's not looking good for me, man. And also, Sean Payton hates him.
Sean Payton has a doghouse. I think that.
Oh yeah,
Dulcich got doghoused by him. He got shipped away for peanuts. Yeah. I'm trying to think of potential trade up options. I guess it all really depends on who is trading up, like what the question is determining. And if, let's say, Shedeur Sanders is available at 11, that could be a target for a team to trade up. I just don't know who would trade up, because
the Saints
are at 9 though.
Oh, they're at 9. Forget it. Yeah.
Up from the second round, which that's too far for me.
Yeah,
to
because
drop back to.
Seattle.
Maybe. I don't know
But
how that would
Seattle,
do with Sam Darnold's confidence. I don't know if you noticed this.
he's on like a 1-year deal though, like essentially. Like
Did you notice?
Hmm?
Oh, sorry. Did you notice that Sam Darnold's play kind of shifted when they signed Daniel Jones?
I do, but also I remember the games in which he struggled, and the old Sam was popping out when internal pressure was coming. And I think that was a little
It's
bit
more
like
so of just
it's
dealing
more, yeah. I attributed it more to the tape and everything, and just like they were like, oh yeah, there's Sam,
destroyed.
right? Like, and he just started seeing the ghosts again because they were just all. And once they started getting in his face, he just was like, oh, like if you want to talk PTSD, Sam
Right.
Darnold's got PTSD when it comes to that.
Yeah. So that's why the 49ers need to build up that defensive line. But again, there really aren't that many quarterback needy teams right now, and if they are, they're in the top 10.
Yeah.
I don't see the Vikings trading up.
Nope, they got their guy.
24-11. That doesn't make sense.
Didn't they sign Nick Mullins back?
I have no idea. Steelers still don't have a quarterback, right? But that's most likely going to be Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers, yeah.
Yeah, there's really not that many teams that can really justify moving up a big spot to 11 to get a quarterback. So that kind of that's the crazy part. If Shedeur Sanders falls out of the top 10, he goes past the Browns, Giants,
And the
Raiders,
yeah,
Jets. Even though they did sign Justin Fields, they could still theoretically bring in competition.
Oh wait.
Saints.
Come close, Brad. Hold on, come close, Brad, real quick. This is a big squirrel. We're a big Justin Fields fans, and the only quarterback from that quarterback class that has a starting job besides Trevor Lawrence is Justin Fields.
Oh, that's crazy.
Oh man,
dang!
Is that a W?
Is that a W? Where
that's a W.
I'm gonna say
that's a W. That's a W.
Start saying too much, man.
Zach Wilson signed with Miami.
Zach Wilson with Miami. Mac Jones on the 49ers as Mr. Irrelevant's backup. And
Mac Jones backed up Trevor Lawrence and now backs up Brock Purdy. Justin Fields is a starter. And so is Trevor Lawrence.
And Trey Lance might be playing.
And Trey Lance is in the CFL. Oh my God. And Davis Mills is CJ Stroud's backup. So that quarterback class, woo.
Oh man, that 2021 year, what a doozy that turned out.
Can't wait for the 30 for 30.
Oh my gosh, it needs to drop immediately. Yeah. I would binge watch that right away. But again, it has to be someone. It doesn't look like anyone's going to really trade up for a quarterback.
And it's hard to figure out right now without the board, like how the board is falling and what needs are there, right? Like we're just throwing out hypotheticals into what player could be available at 11, and if there's no need,
probably have to be someone who's in love with Will Johnson, Jahad Campbell. If let's say Jalen Walker drops and he's there, and someone wants to take a shot on him, like. We dream of trade back. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen. So
correct.
But the variable exists, and it's fun to talk about. So
man, the super chats are flying though today.
Oh, we got another one I almost skipped on. James says Sewell 6 penalties, 1 sack allowed. Woo! So they're basically the same player then, right? Because this is how we evaluate offensive line.
And one player gets paid $2 million per year. The other player was a high draft pick and is one of the highest paid offensive tackles. Man, you guys are really, really saying nice things. This isn't even something that's nice. It's true.
I love this.
That's great job,
and
James.
I love that James was so compelled that he sent a super chat to make sure that we got this up. So
this is a big point.
Shout out, James. Shout out to everyone who sent a super chat today. And
gotta get rid of Colton McKivitz though. Gotta get rid of him.
Oh, he's the worst.
He's not the. It's just, again, I'm going to say it in the the real like measured take in relation to his contract, in relation to draft capital, in relation to the production. it's a massive value at right tackle. And don't be shocked when someone throws a bag at Colton McKivitz next year when he becomes a free agent.
Dude, it is going to be cinema because I don't think he's going to get a McGlinchey type contract.
But he's going to get a substantial contract.
If he puts up one more good year, I would say he's definitely going to get more than Jalen Moore did, which was 15 per year. 15
and
per
2 years. For 2 years.
Yeah. So Colton could end up being a $20 million a year player, which is crazy to say. Could you imagine the hate that Colton McKivitz would get if he was making $20 million right now?
That would be far more understandable. Because I have people on Twitter that say that he's the worst right tackle in football. I'm just like, man, there's 31 other teams out there. I implore you to watch some other teams' right tackles and then come back and tell me that you believe Colton McKivitz is the worst right tackle in football, because it's objectively not true. Like, objectively.
I wish there was a broader way to look up offensive line play other than PFF stats.
PFF grades, yeah.
You know, it does not even remotely tell the picture. It can be in the ballpark, but it doesn't mean it's telling the story.
That stuff has to be in line with the film. Yes. Stats can't tell you something that's not on tape.
Right.
Tape can tell you something that's not in the stats.
100%. So we'll see. But I always love engaging in the McKivitz conversation because
the worst right tackle in football was crazy when I saw that. I was like, not even close. My God, have you watched any other teams play football?
So, yeah. Anyways, I think we got through.
Yeah. No.
Did we?
One more.
I think.
Let me see.
Who do I miss? I got James. I got both James.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, no, we're good then. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Anything else you wanted to touch on before we get out of here?
Yeah, Jordan Schultz was saying that the 49ers are, talking to Brock Purdy. There's your update, guys. There's your Brock Purdy update. You're welcome.
Wow.
It's something that we already knew.
And I believe he said no deal is imminent, which I think we knew.
Duh.
And the 49ers want to get him paid before 2025.
Duh. Keep going.
And 49ers view Brock Purdy as their future quarterback.
Duh. Keep going.
He might get paid anywhere between $50 and $60 million.
Duh. Keep going.
No, my favorite was 50 to 55 or possibly more.
Dude. Here it is. Here's the report. Here's how you do this. And when I drop this report,
possibly more.
Right.
Oh my gosh, man.
Look, here's the report. When I drop this report, Jordan Schultz is going to run down on me and Brad at a Starbucks. Here it is. Good one, right? Good one, right? I was holding on to that.
That was a good one. No.
Per sources, here it is. Ready? No, here it is. Per sources, I expect Brock Purdy to sign a deal anywhere between 50 and 55 million, but anything's possible. Boom. I'm your insider.
That is the most dynamic and compelling reporting I think I have heard this entire time on the whole Brock Purdy situation. So I applaud you and your sources. You did a phenomenal job.
You literally just say at the end of any report, nothing is imminent and anything's possible. And you completely covered your ass the entire time, because when something that you didn't say in the report is there, you can always just highlight, I said anything's possible. Anything is possible. And everything is on the table.
Of course.
Anything is possible, right? Sydney Sweeney could open up my DM finally, right? Anything's possible.
Oh my gosh.
Hey, she took down the picture of her and her fiance. I just wanted to check in and see how she's doing.
Hey, you up?
Sorry, guys. I know this is bad. This is bad podcasting right now.
Oh man, I'm about to be texting John Lynch, hey, you up, man? Because we got some moves to make, baby.
I'll be like, have you looked at these clips of this player? And just start sending them.
He's like, stop, lose my number, pal. Get out
How'd
of
you get
here.
this number?
How'd you get this number? Who is this? I was like, oh gosh. Oh, anyways, good talk today. We got a lot of stuff. In a lot of trade stuff, a lot of draft stuff, and hey, we got some updates to non-updates to the update.
Well, the Brandon Aiyuk one is pretty good. I mean, that I think a lot of people were still on edge with the idea, but when the Patriots signed Stephon Diggs, it kind of puts them out of the running. So that's one team. And then the other team would have been the Chargers, but I think they're going to be fine with running back Mike Williams and Ladd McConkey, so I don't know if that's a possibility. So it's like the potential trade partners are starting to dry up as well too, because again, I think Brandon Aiyuk, if you send him to Cleveland, good luck, because the Browns are just going to have a guy who either is slow playing his injury and never plays, or just completely holds out and just makes them trade him too. So I don't know, man.
I would say I wonder if the Texans and D'Amico Ryans would have any interest, but I think considering the fact that Tank Dell also tore up his knee, I don't know if they would double down on that.
I think they're a prime wide receiver draft team. They've done such a good job. I mean, they identified Tank, they identified Nico. They can't go into this season with Xavier Hutchinson and those guys.
They need more weapons for draft.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so we'll see how it goes, but appreciate everyone who tapped in today, sent the super chats. We appreciate you guys. Appreciate anyone who commented on the show. We always appreciate the chat, and as always, you guys already know what to do. Make sure you like and sub to both channels, and we appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next week. Peace. That's Jason Aponte. I'm Brad Graham. We're going to get into it all right now.